The National Guardianship Network, NGN, is a collaborative group of 14 national organizations dedicated to effective adult guardianship law and practice. Guardianship is a drastic intervention that, in the name of protection, transfers some or all of an individual's fundamental rights to the control of a surrogate. The NGN organized the Fourth National Guardianship Summit, held in May 2021, around the theme Maximizing Autonomy and Ensuring Accountability. Over 4 days, 125 summit participants met virtually to discuss a range of issues impacting the nation's adult guardianship systems. The Fourth National Summit was supported by the NGN members, 11 additional sponsoring organizations, and through funding from the State Justice Institute and the Borchardt Foundation on Law and Aging. The Syracuse University College of Law hosted the summit and provided significant technical and logistical support. The summit was held during the time social media and the press took a strong interest in the high-profile conservatorship case of pop star Britney Spears. While coincidental, the Free Britney movement and similar interest in the cases of artist Peter Max and longtime America's Top 40 host Casey Kasem bolstered a long-overdue awareness and calls to action among guardianship stakeholders, policymakers, and legislators at both the state and federal level. David English, Professor of Law, University of Missouri School of Law.
The Fourth Guardianship Summit was built on the work of the prior 3 summits. The summits have led to fundamental reform for adults subject to or at risk of guardianship.
The 2021 summit followed the success of summits held in 1988, 2001, and 2011. Recommendations from the 3 prior summits contributed to critical reform of state guardianship law and practice, such as the creation of NGN, the development of state working interdisciplinary networks of guardianship stakeholders, or WINGS groups, and the adoption by the Uniform Law Commission of an updated model guardianship law. Despite the improvements spurred by these past recommendations, problems with state guardianship systems continue to exist, leading to the call for a 4th summit. David Hutt, Deputy Executive Director for Legal Services, NDRN, and Summit Chair.
The 125 summit participants gathered virtually for 3 days in 6 small working groups to discuss one of 6 topics important to guardianship reform. On the 4th and final day of the summit, delegates came together to consider and vote on draft recommendations developed by the working groups. The participants represented a number of different groups with expertise and a vital interest to ensure accountability for guardians and protecting the rights of people potentially at risk or currently under a guardianship or conservatorship.
The 6 major topics discussed during the summit included rights-based guardianships, enhancing rights of persons subject to guardianship, supporting decision-making, limited guardianship, protective arrangements, and diverting pipelines, rethinking guardianship monitoring and addressing abuse, addressing fiduciary responsibilities and tensions, and guardianship court improvement programs.
Prior to the summit, participants read articles and briefs written by experts in guardianship law and practice, and alternatives to avoid a guardianship and conservatorship in order to be well prepared for the summit. During the working group discussions, participants considered issues related to their assigned topics, explored a vision to address the identified issues, and critically developed draft recommendations to achieve the vision. On the final day during a facilitated plenary, the summit delegates gathered to consider, amend, and ultimately voted to adopt 22 final recommendations.
10 in-depth papers which address the 6 major topics were solicited for the summit. These papers were used to help delegates prepare for the summit and are available in a 2022 symposium edition of the Syracuse Law Review. The key summit outcome were the 22 summit recommendations addressing all 6 of the major summit topics. All are important to improve the nation's guardianship system and promote less restrictive options. The full text of all recommendations is available on the summit website. Honorable Lauren Holland, Circuit Court Judge, Oregon.
We are talking about a person's life, a relative, neighbor, friend, members of our communities. We all want and deserve to be heard and respected, especially by the courts. Guardianships and conservatorships impact every aspect of a person's life. The guardian or conservator may have the authority to decide where the person will live, who they may have contact with, what medical treatments they will have to endure, how their money is spent, end-of-life decisions. These summit recommendations will assist the courts to make more informed decisions, provide meaningful due process to persons alleged to be incapacitated, grant only absolutely necessary guardianships and conservatorships that are specifically tailored to meet the needs of the person, and ensure that any guardian or conservator is accountable for each decision made.
Many of the summit recommendations require that action be taken by advocates, state governments, state courts, the federal government and Congress, and national organizations. Some important highlights from the recommendations include a call for states and state court systems to eliminate full, also called plenary guardianship, allowing people to retain maximum rights, and if guardianship is imposed, require that the court tailor the guardianship order in all cases. Provide meaningful due process during judicial proceedings, which may impact an adult's rights to legal capacity. This includes providing a lawyer during proceedings. Adopt laws, policies, or practices which require courts to consider supported decision-making as an alternative to guardianship at the time of an appointment and periodically assess afterwards if a guardian is needed. Adopt and implement the Uniform Law Commission's Guardianship, Conservatorship, and Other Protective Arrangements Act, including the provisions mandating representation by a lawyer in adult guardianship proceedings. Ensure guardianship laws have better avenues, stronger protections, and greater independence for individuals being considered for guardianship and persons seeking to terminate or modify a guardianship order. Implement a monitoring system centered on the person after a guardian is appointed. Regulate court-appointed professional guardians through licensure or certification, or both, with sufficient funding for an agency to implement and oversee licensure and certification. Congress and the federal government also have roles. The summit recommendations first call upon Congress to create a guardianship court improvement program to support state courts in enhancing the rights and well-being of adults subject to or potentially subject to guardianship. And second, for the Department of Health and Human Services Administration for Community Living to take the lead, partnering with relevant federal agencies, national aging and disability organizations, and protection and advocacy agencies in promoting state and local collaborations to target guardianship abuse. Bertra McGann, mother.
Hello, I'm Bertra McGann, and I'm a guardian to an adult with a disability. The National Guardianship Summit in May 2021 for the first time included supported decision-making, or SDM. It's a new approach to guardianship that elevates, in fact, prioritizes the preferences of individuals like my son to make decisions about their lives. I was pleased to contribute to the working group on SDM and to bring the lived experience of guardianship to the discussion. There's robust exchange on state statutes and rules and the needs of special populations like the elderly, and whether guardianship agreements need to be time-bound, and importantly, the need to ensure that guardianship reflects the continuum of needs over the lifespan of the individual. SDM is part of that continuum of support represented by guardianship agreements. And it's not solely protective, as is the basis of guardianship, but it's a mechanism to increase the agency of individuals with disabilities across demographics, including the aged, including those leading institutions, IDDD populations, and those with and without family support. It's a new concept. In fact, my son participated in the pilot program here in Virginia. It is a work in progress and an important component of the support ecosystem, along with, for example, powers of attorney and medical directives. As such, it was rewarding in these early stages to propose language that was unanimously adopted that protects the right of the individual to access their preferred communication accommodations when participating in discussions about their preferences for their lives and their futures. This is an historic moment where we can change the trajectory of life outcomes for people with disabilities.
While much work remains to be done, the past summits resulted in significant and concrete actions. These included the creation of the NGN, the adoption of model guardianship laws for states to enact, improved standards of guardianship practice, and greater attention to protection of rights.